Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips. And I'm going to start with a couple of announcements. This time of year, we have the end of all the events coming up. So next week, two things that are really important. One is Optimal Health and Life with Pam Part 2 is scheduled for Weekend Boot Camp Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. This is going to, I've got my slides all together. I'm really excited about teaching this because this is all about all kind beyond the basics of health, like healthy aging, cognitive health, Alzheimer's disease. How do you prevent it? Having healthy hair, skin, nails, being fit, other habits that are important, and that sort of thing. So a lot of you have taken Optimal Health 1. That's where this Optimal Health 2 idea came from. Gosh, I did the one boot camp last year, loved it, learned a lot. So what are you going to offer to me, right? So I only do this once a year. If you don't do it this time, you wait until November next year or December to do it. So I limit the size because I want everybody to see each other in the Zoom session, and also to be able to have some conversation, lots of conversation and questions. That's what makes these smaller events really special. And we do record it. So if you can't join us live and you live in a time zone that's not real friendly to this, then you'll be able to watch it later. Second thing is the mini professional development course begins next Thursday. It's a 3-class series. And I'm going to cover a lot of ground in an overview type of way. So one would be research skills, like how to look things up on your own and how to get good decisions or arrive at good conclusions for your clients, because that is a major shortcoming. We watch that every day, right? The wrong things being taught to people or related to people. And then how to teach diet and lifestyle habits to clients. What do you do to motivate them? How do you motivate habit change? It's not easy for people to change. And then looking at how do you start and develop and operate an independent practice. So it's $249 is the tuition, and you can apply it to professional development courses after you complete it if you decide you want more education from us. But I promise that this session by itself will teach you a lot of stuff. And then it's holiday cookie time, right? So we have these delicious chocolate coconut cookies. We make them in our own kitchen. We ship them any place in the United States, for continental United States, for $24.95. And the earlier you order them, the more likely they are to get there by Christmas. So call our office, email me, pampopper@msn.com, or call the office, 614-841-7700, if this interests you. All right, so today we're going to talk about health. And we're going to specifically look at the issue, who is responsible for health? Does healthcare deliver health? So the information I'm going to share with you came from a posting on a mainstream medical news site, MedPage. It's always surprising when these types of sites feature this type of information. It's an excerpt from an article or book by Stephen Bezruchka, who's a medical doctor and also has a master's degree in public health. It's long, but portions of it are worth sharing and contemplating as we think about our current healthcare system and what needs to change in order for it to deliver better health, not sickness. So here's what this doctor writes. As a medical intern, one evening in 1973, I looked at an issue of the Journal of Infectious Diseases containing an article by Edward Cass, MD, a renowned infectious diseases doctor at Harvard. In that article, Cass presented data on deaths from various infectious diseases since the 1950s in England and Wales, where reliable records had been kept. He noted that poorer people were consistently more likely to succumb to infections. Considering tuberculosis, diphtheria, scarlet fever, measles, and whooping cough, he then presented data demonstrating that deaths from these problems dropped profoundly even before the advent of antibiotics or immunizations. Cass argued that this decline in deaths resulted from improvements in socioeconomic circumstances and standards of living, not medical care. He called it, quote, the most important happening in the history of the health of man, end of quote. It took a few decades for the concepts I read that day to sink in, but Cass's article prompted me to start asking important questions. One of those questions was, how can we distinguish medical care's benefit from threat? Consider giving two groups of people different levels of medical care, with one group receiving as much care as they want and the other having to co-pay part of the cost. In the RAND health insurance study, over 4,000 adults were randomly assigned to one of these two groups. Those who had to pay part of the cost of their care used a third fewer services and had a third fewer hospitalizations than those who had free care. The result? No differences in mortality rates. A more extreme version of this approach considers what happens to death rates when doctors go on strike. A review of the literature suggests mortality actually declines when doctors don't go to work. One study of people receiving less treatment because of a doctor strike was done for the month-long anesthesiologist's 1976 strike in Los Angeles County. County coroner death rates fell during the strike. Deaths then increased afterwards as elective surgeries had been postponed. This unexpected finding that less care is not always less health has been confirmed again and again, but the reasons behind it are not clear. One possible explanation is that whenever medical care itself has been considered as a possible cause of death, it's always one of the leading factors. The first major study on medical harm was published in 1991. Investigators from Harvard Medical School reviewed a sample of charts from New York hospitals for 1984, documenting adverse events that resulted from the care provided. Common problems were reactions to prescribed drugs and surgical wound infections. There were complications from technical procedures, such as leaving an instrument in the body during surgery or a device not functioning correctly. Adverse events were found to be common, with a substantial proportion ending in death. Since then, many studies in different countries by different investigators have found medical harm to be common. A key finding: being admitted to a hospital can result in a substantial risk of dying from treatment alone, and the sicker you are and the longer you stay, the greater the risk. People die in their quest for medical care. The numbers of these deaths vary. In the 2015 issue of Best Hospitals from US News and World Report, an article on patient safety disclosed that one analysis put the number of preventable deaths alone each year at 440,000. In 2016, a study by surgeons at Johns Hopkins University presented medical error as the third leading cause of death in America. The New York Times reported in 1998 that over 100,000 people die each year from adverse drug reactions alone. So my comments in response for this: the reason for sharing this with you is not to suggest that all medical care is bad or that you should never seek it. It's to emphasize the fact that when people like you and I outsource our health to others instead of ourselves, bad things happen. This would be the case no matter what you outsource. Personal responsibility is a pillar of how we should live, but the consequences are particularly terrible when we outsource health. The number one provider of healthcare to you should be you, paying attention every day to the food that you eat, the water you drink, sleep, exercise, your weight, your emotional and mental health. You have control over these things, and for most people, these things will be the primary determinant of health. I often share inspirational stories of centenarians who are living great lives. I've read hundreds of these accounts, and I've not read one in which the 100-year-old person attributed long life to doctors. It's always about the way they live their lives. And the thing that I would add to this is being informed when you do have to interact with doctors and hospitals is very important. It's the number one way that you can avoid harm, is to only seek care that's actually necessary, keep yourself healthy as much as you possibly can, and to know something about risks and benefits before you jump into signing up for some type of care. So I hope that that motivates you. Kind of brings me back to this weekend next week, the Optimal Health and Life with Pam. That's what these weekends are all about. Put you in control of your health, make you pay attention every day to what you're doing, the way you live your life, so you can avoid as much intervention as possible and be smarter about the intervention that you choose when it's time, if it's time to choose. Well, that's all for today. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy learning from me, and I will be back to you tomorrow with more news.